Hello, Connecticut colleagues. I'm grateful to be joining you from Hagerstown, Maryland, and I'd like to thank Kristen, the conference committee, and the board of directors for this opportunity. My name is Carrie McMahon, and I have had the distinct pleasure of practicing as a PA for over 27 years. My career has taken many twists and turns. I spent my first 8 years in primary care before pivoting to women's health for another 9 years, and then transitioned to dermatology and plastic surgery, where I spent 3 years before making the decision to leave full-time clinical practice for academia. My job mobility is not unique, and probably one of the reasons that you all chose this amazing profession. Another reason you likely chose to be a PA, if you do some real deep soul searching, is our potential to make a lot of this beautiful green paper called money. My only disclosure for this presentation is that I'm not a financial expert, but rather an expert in my lived experience, in my research, and in my opinion. Throughout my career, I have been blessed with the opportunity to tap into the maximum earning potential of our profession. Due to a lack of financial literacy, I learned the hard way that, as it turns out, two things can be true at the same time. We can be smart enough to make lots of money without having the knowledge to manage it. I'm hopeful that by sharing my story and extensive research, I will empower you to avoid burnout and make the most of your career. Here are some learning objectives for my presentation. This visual illustrates a progressive and reinforcing relationship many of our colleagues quietly experience. It begins with financial strain. For PAs, many of whom graduate with substantial educational debt, this is not abstract. While these stressors may appear logistical or mathematical, they are deeply psychological. Money touches every area of our lives. Financial strain directly constrains autonomy. High educational debt, fixed loan repayments, and limited savings narrows both perceived and actual career options. The internal narrative shifts from "I choose to be here" to "I have to be here." And that shift from choice to obligation is psychologically powerful. When individuals feel trapped financially, their sense of control diminishes, resulting in increased emotional exhaustion and reduced resilience. Over time, unresolved psychological distress contributes to burnout. Burnout is characterized by a state of emotional, mental, and often physical exhaustion, typically resulting from prolonged stress and high demands in the workplace. Some symptoms associated with burnout include increased irritability, a short temper, or irritable with patients, coworkers, family, and friends. Emotional exhaustion, feeling overwhelmed by one's emotions, displaying fatigue and a lack of energy. This represents the draining of emotional resources and is a core symptom of burnout. Depersonalization, feeling disconnected from patients or colleagues, showing signs of cynicism or a negative, callous attitude towards patients. Physical symptoms such as headaches, gastrointestinal issues, and even frequent illness. Reduced professional efficacy, a decline in job performance, lack of personal accomplishment, or a feeling that your work is no longer making a difference. And mental distress, signs of anxiety, depression, or mood swings can also be indicative of burnout. When clinicians are mentally preoccupied with financial survival, their emotional bandwidth narrows. And burnout in healthcare is not just an individual experience. It has measurable consequences for patient safety, clinician health, and healthcare system performance. Let's take a look at some data on APP well-being and burnout. According to the AAPA, 41% of PAs are experiencing at least one or more symptoms of burnout or are completely burnt out. A JAPA study published in JAPA indicates that more than 50% of PAs will experience burnout at some time in their career. So let's think about these numbers. If there's approximately 190,000 practicing PAs and 41% of them are experiencing symptoms of burnout, that's almost 80,000 of our PA colleagues. A 2024 Medscape report found that roughly 37% of our nurse practitioner colleagues are feeling burned out. And if there's 161,000 practicing nurse practitioners, 37% of them equates to over 170,000 of our nurse practitioner colleagues experiencing symptoms of burnout. Which makes the last comment on this slide pretty believable, that there's projected to be a healthcare workforce shortage of 100,000 clinicians by 2028. This data shows us that burnout in our profession is fairly common. But just because something is common doesn't mean that it's good or that we should just accept it. Many effective strategies have been identified in literature to help prevent burnout. Things like prioritizing self-care, getting adequate sleep, practicing healthy eating habits, engaging in regular physical activity, utilizing mindfulness practice, seeking social support, building a support system with colleagues, friends, and family can provide a valuable outlet for sharing experiences and reducing emotional strain. Setting boundaries. It's essential for PAs to establish work-life boundaries and stick to them. Professional development. Doing things like you're doing while watching this recording. Attending conferences. Engaging in continuous learning can help PAs maintain a sense of growth and competence, and that can be protective against burnout. Organizational strategies. Healthcare organizations can assist by recognizing that burnout is real and providing resources to help clinicians address burnout symptoms. Policies that promote reasonable workloads and acknowledge the efforts of healthcare workers are critical. And through my journey and research, I've identified another effective way to get ahead of burnout, and that is with financial freedom. Reducing financial burdens leads to less stress, anxiety, and potential for burnout. I think it's important that I share my story to provide framework for my passion about this topic. This is me and my program director at my PA school graduation ceremony. And like all of you, upon graduation, I was excited to start making money. To provide some additional perspective, this was in 1998 when a bachelor's degree was our terminal degree in our profession. So I went to PA school at the age of 17 years old. You can imagine that when I got my first paycheck at the age of 23, I thought I was rich. Soon after graduation from PA school, my husband and I got married. And of course, what did we do? We buy a house. This was actually a great purchase and one of the only things that we accidentally did well financially early in our marriage. We purchased a foreclosure home for $133,000, which was well within our means. It was a great house, met all of our needs. Fast forward 2 to 3 years, my husband and I are enjoying our careers, making really good money, and essentially living la vida loca. You see, my husband and I were both first generation college grads. And while that meant that our parents were super proud of our accomplishments, it also meant that we had no idea how to manage six-figure salaries. Money management had not been a conversation in our households growing up. So here we were at 24 years old, making one stupid financial decision after another. This is a 1993 Saturn that my parents had gifted me for high school graduation. Y'all, this was a free car. And yet, what's the first thing that all new grads seem to think that they deserve upon college graduation? It's like a rite of passage. A new car. And my choice was a Chrysler Sebring convertible, literally off the showroom floor. Instead of continuing to vacation in Ocean City, Maryland, which had provided us many wonderful memories, we were now booking trips to Europe like everyone else. No more 9 West bags from Kohl's. Of course, I had to look the part of rich girl and have a Louis. And by far, the dumbest mistake we made was selling our great starter home, which we probably could have had paid off in about 10 years, for a bigger house in a better neighborhood. And of course, what must you do when you buy a new home? Install new appliances, install new flooring, finish the basement, put in a patio. All of these upgrades on a home equity line of credit, of course. Why did we do this? Well, why not? We made good money. We deserved it. We worked hard. After all, we could afford the financing payments. Fast forward 18 years into my career. We now have 2 beautiful daughters, and at this point, I'm working in the dermatology and plastic surgery office, making really good money. We were doing all of the things that upper middle class families do. Our kids are enrolled in private schools, playing travel sports year round. We're members at the local country club. And just to keep up with the rat race of raising a family while working full time, of course, we have to hire a cleaning service, and we're eating out 3 to 4 nights a week. Oh, by this point, we'd also upgraded vehicles just to keep up with the Joneses. My husband's now driving a Suburban, and myself a Lincoln Aviator. And why not? We could afford the payments. I began recognizing some symptoms of burnout, although this is pre-COVID, before burnout was openly discussed. All I knew is I had gotten to the point that I dreaded Mondays. I would literally wake up on Sunday mornings with a tension headache and a pit in my stomach. Irritable would be putting it kindly. I would pull into the clinic parking lot each morning and have to sit in my car and convince myself to walk through the office door. Around this time, I was blessed to reunite with a classmate of mine from PA school at a CME conference. He shared with me a similar experience of what we now call burnout from his years working in the ER and how he had rejuvenated his career as an educator. I left that conversation with hope and excitement. I made some connections and within a few weeks delivered a guest lecture at a PA program near my home. After giving my lecture and connecting with students, I couldn't get to my car fast enough to call my husband and say, "This is it. I have found the new me." Our shared excitement about this potential career move came to a screeching halt when we discovered the average income of PA educators. I knew I was unhappy in my career, but the lifestyle that we had created had backed us right into a corner. We couldn't afford to take a $40,000 pay cut. Our household income at this time was about $250,000. And yet we were using credit cards at the end of the month to pay for groceries. For the first time in our marriage, we sat down and actually looked at our numbers to discover that we were what you call rich, broke people. We were spending like we were members of Congress. We got angry with ourselves. We were working way too hard to be this broke. It took us 2 years to pay off debt, organize our finances, and start living within our means, finally able to breathe again. Around the time we had dug ourselves out of debt, I was offered a faculty position at a startup PA program close to my home. In my heart, I had not given up on my desire to become an educator. It was during the negotiating phase of that contract that I was seeing my last patient on a Friday afternoon after yet another long week in the clinic. She was on my schedule for a 10-minute mole check. I conducted my typical patient encounter, and she was relieved to hear about the seborrheic keratosis on her chest. As my hand is on the door handle to exit the room and finally start my weekend, she spoke up to say, "My blood pressure isn't usually that high. It's probably elevated because my son passed away unexpectedly 2 days ago." And do you know my first reaction to this heartbroken mother was that I was annoyed that she was taking up more of my time. I got in my car that day, looked at myself in the mirror, and I thought, "You monster." I had become so burnt out that I was no longer able to express compassion and empathy for my patients. Because my husband and I had finally taken control of our finances and worked hard to become financially free, I now had options. Do you know I accepted that lower paying faculty position the very next day, which was a blessing to myself, to my family, and to my patients. When we improve financial literacy, provide structured support, and normalize conversations about money stress, we intervene early in this cascade, reducing distress and protecting against burnout before it becomes entrenched. I learned the hard way that you can't actually out-earn your stupidity. And I want better for each of you. I want you to happen to life rather than life happen to you. And so, how do we keep ourselves in control of this journey we call life? Well, we do that with financial freedom. So, let's discuss some tactical steps toward financial freedom. The first step to financial freedom is eliminating debt. Now, I don't care which party you vote for, our country has normalized debt. Last year, the total number of personal bankruptcy filings reached over 533,000. And that doesn't include business bankruptcy. That is personal bankruptcy. The total US credit card debt recently surpassed $1.28 trillion. Federal Reserve data shows that the average amount financed for a new car in 2025 was over $44,000, making the average monthly payment for a new car about $750. The average monthly payment for a used car last year was about $570. And the average cost of a vacation per person per week is over $2,200. And a family of four, close to $9,000. I encourage you to get out and stay out of debt. Debt is a leading cause of stress, anxiety, and divorce. There is a reason why Scripture warns us that the borrower is slave to the lender. Many of you watching this video might be feeling like you're in a giant hole of debt. But I have great news for you. You've got a strong ladder to climb yourself out. And that ladder is called your income. The average salary for PAs in Connecticut is $140,000. Let's compare that individual salary to the average household income in the country is about $78,000. So there's no excuse not to win with your money. You just need a plan. And that plan brings us to the second step to financial freedom, budgeting. Get on a written budget. A budget helps you gain control of your income. It tells your money what to do rather than wondering where it went. Some reasons why people might not budget include things like they never learned how. They're feeling overwhelmed and unorganized. They don't even know where to start. There's a fear of uncovering the truth. At the end of the day, the math doesn't lie. And it's also an extra item on the never-ending to-do list of life. Life's already so busy. I can tell you that all of these reasons were true for my husband and I. We avoided budgeting because we subconsciously knew that we were overspending. Be organized and intentional with every dollar. You work too hard not to. Let's take a look at a sample monthly budget. It really doesn't need to be complicated. First, the income side. That's always more fun. We said the average salary for a PA in Connecticut is $140,000. After federal, state taxes, and Social Security, that would be a net monthly income of about $7,900. Now let's take a look at the expenses. The average monthly mortgage payment in Connecticut is about $2,477. We've got electric, internet, streaming service. Average monthly grocery expense for an individual is $350. We've got gas for our vehicle, insurances, which encompasses healthcare insurance, homeowners insurance, vehicle insurance. You've got your cell phone bill, dining out. You've got a car payment. I was actually kind and gave you a used car payment of $570. The average amount going towards credit cards per month, $181. And the average amount paid towards student loans, $1,565. This sample budget, and again, your individual numbers may indeed look a little bit different than this. What's important is that you just create a budget and know your numbers. This particular example would leave you with a margin of $1,260. Now notice, this is a bare bones budget. This does not include things like children's expenses, if you have children or hope to have children in the future, vehicle upkeep, gym memberships, entertainment, vacations, retirement investing. Oh, it also doesn't take into account those of you who can't seem to live without your daily grandes at $5 a piece. And all of that spending adds up, leaving you feeling like your money is tighter than a middle seat on a Spirit flight. And what do most people like my husband and I do when we have more month left at the end of our money? Is we turn to credit cards to make the difference. Let's talk for a moment about the monster under the bed for many of you. And her name is Sally Mae. This is data from PAEA showing that the average amount of student loan debt that students will graduate with from PA school is $125,000. And that doesn't take into consideration any additional debt from undergraduate degrees or even personal loans that have been taken out during PA school. I have the pleasure of presenting at PA programs across the country, and I do a quick survey at the beginning of my talk, asking how much debt they plan to graduate with. It's not uncommon to see responses upwards of towards $175,000 to $200,000 worth of student loan debt. And this is not uncommon amongst a variety of health professionals. And it puts health professions graduates at a tremendous burden for new clinicians. So let's take a look at a strategic approach for breaking free from student loan debt. The first step is don't ignore it. Acknowledging that it's there and it's not going to go away on its own, regardless of who's in the White House. The average student loan payoff schedule lingers for 10 years. So you'll see here in this particular example, we started with $125,000 in student loans with an average interest rate of 7%. Now, of course, that interest rate's going to vary whether they're federal or private student loans. This is over 10 years, you're paying $1,565 a month. And the column that should really make you want to vomit is the fact that you would be throwing out $54,000 worth of interest. That's your hard-earned money, literally going out the window. So what if we paid an extra $1,000 a month towards these student loans? Let's look at what those numbers look like. It's getting better. We still started with the $125,000 with a 7% interest to keep consistent. Instead of paying just the $1,565 minimum, we're adding an extra $1,000 a month. We have the ability now to shave 5 years off of the life of this loan. And even more importantly, we've cut the amount of interest in half. Now let's get disgusted with Sally Mae and get her out of our life once and for all. Let's look at paying an extra $2,000 per month. This actually saves you a total of 7 years on your loan payoff. Instead of it taking you 10 years to pay off, you're done in 3 years. And you've again cut the amount of interest you've paid in half. So this is going to take some intentional sacrifice. Doing things like moonlighting in the evenings and on the weekends to make some extra money. Or maybe postponing a home purchase, getting a roommate to help with the living expenses, and trimming your own personal expenses. But it can be done. So now what would your monthly budget look like? We still have the same income, $140,000, bringing home about $7,900 after taxes. But now we've eliminated our car payment, we've eliminated our credit cards, and we've eliminated the student loan. We've just given ourselves a $2,300 raise per month. We now have a margin of $3,576. Hard work and sacrifice is always worth it when you solve for peace. So now, if you feel called to take a lower paying position, maybe you want to pause your career to stay home with your children or work part-time. Maybe you need to manage a personal illness or support an aging parent. Maybe your workplace doesn't align with your values, or it's downright toxic. You now have the financial margin to have options. The third step to financial freedom is contentment. Plain and simple, lifestyle creep is real. Lifestyle creep is when your income goes up and your spending creeps right up with it. You don't even notice the shift. We live in a culture of immediate gratification. Our society tells us that we work hard, so we deserve nice things. We're working alongside colleagues with similar salaries, and yet they're driving BMWs. And they insist on parking right next to my 5-year-old Saturn every day. Their kids are going to Ivy League schools. Well, I can barely scrape money together to contribute to my kids' 529 plan. And they're going on amazing vacations and posting it all over Instagram. And look, they're just so darn happy. I've got some tips to avoid lifestyle creep. Build a budget and follow it. This helps you to have more money left at the end of your month rather than more month left at the end of your money. Don't worry about how other people are spending their money. Comparison is the thief of joy. Regularly review your financial goals and keep yourself focused. These frequent reminders of your why serve as very powerful motivation. And practice generosity. Generosity builds character, gratitude, and joy. Your biggest wealth building tool is your income. And the problem with debt is that you don't even see any of your income when it's all going out to payments. 8 out of 10 Americans live paycheck to paycheck, and it doesn't matter what the income bracket is. And if that's normal, you don't want to be normal. Once you are debt-free, you're ready to start investing and dreaming about your future. Here, we'll take a look at a simple investing calculation of investing 15% of your income, which is a pretty standard recommendation and very achievable once you have eliminated your debt payments. So the average PA graduate is 28 years old. We talked through a 3-year plan to dig out from student loan debt. So here, we're going to, in this example, start at the age of 31. You'd like to dream of retiring at 62. You're starting with nothing in your retirement plan at the age of 31, and you're going to contribute 15% of your income, which is $1,750. Historically, the 30-year return of the S&P 500 has been roughly 10 to 12%. So we'll play it conservative, and we'll say 10% return on your investment. This investing strategy would allow you to retire at 62 with $4.3 million. Well, how did that happen, you might ask? Well, over that time frame, you contributed $651,000, while your best friend, compound interest, helped you to grow another $3.7 million. And I've got even better news. These numbers are without an employer match. An employer match is a benefit that most large employers offer, in which they contribute money towards your retirement, assuming you are also contributing towards your retirement. The most common structure for an employer match is 50 cents for every dollar that you contribute of your own money, up to 6% of your income. Now, your particular match structure, those numbers might look a little bit different. But for the sake of this exercise, we're going to use the most common structure in this country. And in this case, for the first 6% of your income, your employer is going to match 50 cents for every dollar. And that is free money to the tune of $350 a month. Well, you might be thinking, well, that's not very much. Well, let's take a look at what that does. So here we're investing 15%, plus our employer is giving us additional free money. We're still starting at 31. We want to retire at 62. We have 0 contributed thus far. Instead of our $1,750, we're going to add another $350. So between our contribution and my employer's contribution, we're adding $2,100 a month to my retirement with a 10% return on investment. Now we're going to retire with over $5.2 million at the age of 62. There again, how did that happen? Well, we contributed total between my money and my employer's money about $781,000. Our best friend arrived at the party and gave us an additional $4.4 million. Okay, now let me connect with the folks in the audience that may be arriving to the party a little bit later, like my husband and I. Maybe you've had to work through some mistakes. Maybe you've had some financial setbacks. Well, I've got good news. It's not too late. Let me provide you with some hope. For this example, we're going to start 9 years later at the age of 40. We want to retire still at 62. We're still investing the $2,100 between my contribution and my employer's $350 a month at 10% return on investment. We're now still going to be able to retire with over $2 million. I do, however, want to bring your attention to how that changes that compound interest. In this case, we would have contributed about $554,000, and our compound interest is another 1.4 million. So there are certainly advantages to investing earlier. But I do want to provide you hope. It's never too late. With this particular nest egg of over $2 million, at 62 years old, if you drew off 4% from that $2 million each year for the rest of your life, you would have an income of $80,000 annually without ever touching the principal. And that's just one person's income. So if you have a spouse doing the same thing, making a similar amount of money, you can double that. Ladies and gentlemen, that's where it's at. This is ultimate financial freedom. These investment calculators are helpful in reinforcing your why during all of the sacrifices, the long months, the long years during that debt payoff journey. If data tells us that burnout rates are fairly high in our profession, then let's get ready to fight it strategically. The roadmap is simple. First, eliminate debt and don't look back. Debt steals your income and your options. Second, have a plan for your hard-earned money. Be intentional and organized. Just like your physical wellness, your mental wellness, your spiritual wellness, your financial wellness is not going to manage itself. Wealth is not going to be built accidentally. What you track, you control. And what you plan, you protect. Third, resist lifestyle creep. Don't buy things that you don't need with money that you don't have to impress people that you don't even like. Personal finance is 80% behavior. Discipline today creates freedom tomorrow. Scripture says it best. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but it yields a harvest of righteousness. You don't deserve a luxury car. You deserve peace. You don't deserve a 5-star vacation. You deserve margin. You don't deserve a country club membership. You deserve to make a career change when you are burnt out, rather than subjecting your loved ones and your patients to the worst version of yourself. For years, we have tried to treat burnout downstream with resilience training, redesigning workflow, wellness programs. But what if we've been missing the upstream driver? Financial stress narrows autonomy. It limits options. It creates a feeling of being trapped. And this loss of autonomy is one of the strongest predictors of burnout. Financial well-being isn't about dollars and cents. It's about restoring agency. When clinicians are financially stable, they practice from a place of choice, not survival. They can negotiate. They can pivot, they can lead, they can build sustainable careers. If we truly want to prevent burnout and not just manage it, we must address financial well-being upstream. Because sustainable clinicians build sustainable healthcare. I'll say thank you again to the CME committee for inviting me to be with you all today. I appreciate your interest in supporting our colleagues. I would welcome the opportunity to connect with you. I have my email address here for you. I would also love the opportunity to connect on LinkedIn. Reach out directly if you have any questions or comments. I would certainly love to collaborate. Thank you so much.